What would it mean to Fort Worth to have this airplane here?
For me, Fort Worth has always been the home of the B-58, and I think there's a lot more to it than that. I think that the city of Fort Worth welcomed us all, and since we were a little bit unique, there was a lot of interest, a lot of visibility for the B-58 program, and I don't know anybody that lived in Fort Worth that didn't absolutely love it, and I'm sincere about that. The schools were wonderful for our children. We were welcomed everywhere we went, even though we made a lot of noise in the middle of the night, early in the morning, with our takeoffs and landings. It just was a place that we were comfortable in, a place that we felt welcome in.
Tell us what do you think it would mean to Fort Worth to have B-58 back here?
Well, this is its birthplace. I think every person or thing should return to their birthplace when possible. They built it here. It was a big activity for the commerce of Fort Worth and for the people of Fort Worth. And some of them probably still don't know that the B-58 was actually built here. And I think it's important for them to know their history.
What do you think would be a good way for the aviation nuts in town to explain to people what is this airplane? How do we tell people that this fascinating machine was built here?
Well, I think part of it is they have to understand the Cold War, and perhaps we've reached a stage where so many people nowadays don't even realize there had been a Cold War, and that we were on nuclear alert, and between the Soviet Union and the United States, we didn't know what was going to happen next, and we'd have practice alerts to be able to show that we can respond from the time an enemy missile, a nuclear missile, is detected coming across the polar regions, that we had to have the last aircraft on alert off the ground before it would have hit. And I don't think it's still classified, but we only had about anywhere, depending on where your base was, about 12 to 15 minutes reaction time to get the last bomber off the ground before the missiles could hit.
What do you think? What do you think it means to Fort Worth to have this airplane back here?
Well, it's a shame that we've only got 8 left out of all of the ones that we had. They were sent to the boneyard in January 1970, and then 7 years later they were sold to a junk dealer and destroyed, basically. So this is one of the 8 that's left, and Fort Worth should have it. This was the origin of the B-58 when Convair started their development of the B-58. So it's important in that respect.
Why should bringing this B-58 back to Fort Worth, why is it important?
Well, to me personally, it's not important because I live in Tucson. But to preserve the B-58 and for future people, I think it is extremely important to get it back. To most people, it's an unknown airplane. Most people don't have any idea what a B-58 is. And you show them and they say, oh, that's a beautiful airplane, which it is. But just for the future, I think it's very important to bring it back.
How did you like living in Fort Worth back then?
Loved it. I lived out on Lake Worth. It was a nice place to live.
What do you think the importance is of bringing this airplane to Fort Worth?
Well, they definitely should have it. I'm surprised there's so many. I mean, there's not many of them, but all the ones that they have are spaced out throughout the country instead of where they were built, right here in Fort Worth. And they definitely should have one here. Just like the Air Force Museum has one, and they should have one, and we should have one here. So yeah, hope they get it.
Why should Fort Worth have a B-58?
It was made here. And for General Dynamics not to support it, it's a slap in their face.
So what do you think the bringing a B-58 to Fort Worth would mean to this community?
I don't know what it would mean to this community, but I know what it would mean to this organization. That is our plane. That is our baby. Those men worked hours and trained hours. And it's like a child. And losing that child would be heartbreaking to these men right now and to all of us.
Sounds good, Bess. Very good, very good.
Thank you.
That should work.
Well, tell me what bringing that airplane to Fort Worth would mean to the people that flew it and to the people of Fort Worth.
Well, I think bringing it back, it's part of Fort Worth's heritage as far as I'm concerned. Since they were made here, and most of the initial cadre was trained here. It's history. It's history that people don't know anything about. When I mentioned the B-58, they ask you what you flew. Well, what's a B-58? And I said, well, first supersonic bomber that we had. Very impressive airplane.
Well, tell me who you are and how you are associated with the B-58.
Well, I'm Jim Shelton, and I'm a pilot. And I graduated from pilot training in '56, the year that this flew. So I've been interested in the airplane for a long time.
What does bringing this airplane to Fort Worth mean to you?
Well, the history of the airplane is dying. As one of the fellows said, you can't go out to the model store and buy a model of a B-58. And there are a lot of people that know nothing about the airplane. But it was, I almost think ahead of its time, as it was a Mach 2 bomber. We didn't have anything that, I guess I thought Convair built the F-106 fighter because the F-102 wouldn't go as fast as this. So they built the bomber, and then things came along. So it was right on the edge of technology for the airplane. And getting it back here so people can see it again. I think there are 5 or 6 B-58s out at museums. They're very limited because they took them down to Tucson for storage, and when they found out that they couldn't use them anymore, they destroyed them. And so like I say, I think there may be 5 of them out there at museums. And they were built here, born here, the first unit was here. It means a lot to get it back to the area where it's home.